All right, what is up, guys? Today I am going to be showing you a lot of the common mistakes that people do when shooting. All right, and I'm going to teach you guys how to shoot the ball just like Steph Curry, and your three-point percentage is going to go up by at least 10%, maybe even more. All right, so you guys will be expert shooters by the end of this video if you follow all the steps and you stick around to the end, because at the end, all right, is going to be the most important thing to being the best three-point shooter. All right, so if you want to really improve your shooting, make sure you stay all the way till the end and subscribe, all right, because I will continue to pump this stuff out and give you all the best tips and tricks to really become the best basketball player. So make sure to stay to the end. That's where the best tips and tricks will be. All right, and we'll work our way up. So make sure you follow every single rule though, because if you don't do it all together, then you will not be a good shooter. All right, so let's jump right into it. The first most common mistake that people make that really affects people's shooting, all right, is not having that elbow tucked. All right, and what happens is when we don't tuck our elbow, it's gonna make it really difficult to aim. All right, so when I take a shot like that, it's gonna be difficult to aim. All right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna tuck that elbow just like that, so it's a lot easier to aim. All right. I missed the first one, but you notice it's a lot straighter, right? I have more control of where it aims. So now I just need to adjust for the power. And there we have it. Go ahead, raise it a little bit. The second most common mistake that people tend to make is they tend to shoot with both hands. And when you're starting out, it's a really common thing to do because you feel like you get more power out of the ball. But in all reality, you're only digging yourself into a deeper hole, because it is very hard to shoot with two hands accurately. You know, you can't dictate which direction it goes, right? You might push it more with this hand, you might push it more with that hand. It makes it very difficult to aim, similar to having the untucked elbow. All right, so when I shoot with two hands, difficult, right? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take one hand, all right, we're gonna put it underneath the ball like that, all right, and we're gonna shoot with just one hand, all right? And if you, hold on, all right. Just like that, all right? And so if you continue to practice that over and over and over again, sit there, all right, do free throws, do free shots, whatever, you know, any range. Continue to work on shooting with that one hand, right? You don't even need to have this hand here, and just shooting straight. Work on shooting straight, all right? And the more you do that, the more of a dead shot you're gonna be. You're gonna be shooting a lot more accurate shots, all right? So work on that and continue to practice that drill. All right, guys. So the third most common mistake, all right, is a lot of people with their non-dominant hand tend to thumb the ball, all right? And what that means is when they go to shoot the ball, instead of putting their non-dominant hand directly on the side as a guide hand, right, they'll shoot the ball and clip it with their thumb, and that ends up making your shot go off. And it's really frustrating when that happens, because you don't really think about it and you're like, why is this happening? Why am I so off? But you might just be thumbing the ball the whole time. So try and focus on keeping that hand straight as a guide hand, all right? So this is what it looks like if I thumb the ball. All right, it's just slightly off, and it's very barely noticeable, but it makes a huge difference. And once you realize that you're doing it and you're able to correct it, you will become a much better shooter. being aware. So this is what it looks like when you don't thumb the ball, all right, and you keep your hand nice and straight, all right. It's a lot easier, okay? So that is gonna be our third common misconception or mistake. On to the fourth, all right? And so this one's pretty important. A lot of people, right, when they're in motion and they're in a game, right, you might not think about it too much, but you might, right, grab the ball from the side and bring it in and loop it and then take a shot. But now you're carrying all that side momentum with you, and that gather is not efficient for your shot, and it increases your chances of missing. So when you grab that ball, all right, bring it to the middle, and when you're ready to take that shot, come up with it straight. All right, you want to have a straight gather. All right, that's what's going to help you shoot with more forward momentum and less directional momentum. All right, so what that's going to look like, right? Let's say you're in a game and you're picking up from the side, and now you're swinging it away. You didn't mean to do that, but it's because of your gather. All right. So what you want to do, all right, let's say I grab it from the side still, right? Grab it from the side, bring it in straight, and then shoot. That straight gather puts that sideways momentum into forward momentum that helps you carry that ball through the basket. All right, so this one is really important, all right? If you don't do this, you will not make a lot of your shots, and you will get tired very quickly, all right? So what this is, common mistake, all right, is a lot of people, right, when they shoot the basketball, they just think about shooting it, right? Just shooting it. Shooting it with your arms, right? But there's more to it than that, all right? You don't want to have a stagnant shot, okay? It's not just in the arm. This is what it looks like when it's just in the arm. It's weak, right? You're not gonna make it there every time. And if you are, you're giving it way too much effort and you're gonna get exhausted, all right? So what you're gonna wanna do, all right, is you're gonna wanna have a fluid motion in your body, all right? You're gonna wanna carry that momentum from your feet to your legs, into your knees, right? All the way up into those arms and pushing up and carrying that momentum through the ball so you can get it to the basket with less effort and more accuracy, all right? And this will help you drastically, especially with your stamina. So what that's gonna look like, all right? It's a full body motion, starting with the feet, working all the way up, fluid, like a wave, all right? It's gonna look like that. Just like that. And it's gonna be easier to make shots, and you're gonna get a lot less tired quicker. All right. Great. So that was number 5. All right, now I think we're on to tip number 6. All right, so another big mistake that a lot of people make, all right, is they just aim for the basket. Right, and you might not really understand what I mean when I say that, but what I mean is they aim for the big target of the basket, right, or the back of the backboard, right, and that'll only be so helpful as chances are, yeah, you're gonna make it there, right, but where exactly are you aiming? Where do you want that ball to go, right? If you want that ball to go in and not just hit the basket, you need to aim for a specific spot, all right? And so what I suggest is there's a couple places you can aim, and you want to look specifically at that spot. All right, you can either aim for the last hook at the very back of the rim and aim to specifically put the ball in front of that hook, or you can aim for putting it specifically in the dot in the middle of the rim, all right? Or what Steph Curry likes to do is aim for the 3 hooks in the front and put it behind those 3 hooks. All right? That's what I like to do as well, because I'm able to visualize putting it over, right? Putting it over those 3 hooks and aiming specifically for that. And if you go a little bit too much over, you still have a couple inches there of room for the basketball still to switch it in, right? Or hit the back of the rim and bounce back and come into the rim. So that's what I recommend. All right, aim for those 3 hooks and to put it over them specifically, because if you just aim for the large target, you don't have a bullseye to hit that you can dial your shot in. All right, so focus on that and think about that when you're shooting, and that will help you become a significantly better 3-point shooter or mid-range. All right, and so what I mean, right, I'm going to go ahead right now, I'm just going to aim for the basket rod. Okay, chances are I'll probably still make it. I'm a good shooter, but I'm still going to just aim for the basket. All right, there you go. So I didn't make it because I just aimed to put it there, right? I didn't aim to put it specifically behind those hooks, right? So think about that when you're shooting. So now I'm gonna aim for putting the ball in front of those 3 hooks specifically, all right? I'm going to envision, right, putting the ball over the rim into that specific spot, and that will help you dial in your accuracy. All right, on to tip number 7. All right, and so what that's going to be, right, another mistake that people tend to do is shooting the ball however they grab it. All right, yeah, it doesn't really seem like something you really think of, right? But and how would that affect your shot, you know? But there is proof that it matters. All right, many elite point guards, right, like Chris Paul, they will work, or Steve Nash even, they will work to put the ball in the shooter receiver's hand exactly how they want it. And what that is typically is lining your fingers up with the laces. All right, so what I like to do when you're practicing, right, envision putting your finger, right, your shooting finger, right where that dot is in the middle, okay? And what that's gonna do for you is you're just gonna have a lot straighter of a shot because it's just more accurate that way. Superstars prefer to shoot it like that, and point guards put it in their hand like that for a reason. Only really elite point guards, it's difficult to put a ball in someone's hand and know it's gonna land that exact way. That's difficult. But when you're shooting, right, a lot of spot up shooters, you know, sometimes they might get the ball the wrong way. So if you look very closely, right, they'll receive the ball and they'll quickly turn it so they get the laces and they can shoot it like that. It makes it easier to shoot. All right, it really won't be conscious all the time, but if you make an effort to shoot perpendicular to the laces, then you will become a better shooter. Just period. All right, this is me shooting, not worrying about it. Keep in mind, I also had a terrible gather there, but this is me shooting with the laces. All right. So consciously think about that when you are shooting. All right, this is tip number 8. All right. And so what this is a little more specific, but it's similar to the last one. All right. And what that's going to be is being able to determine your shooting finger. All right. This is something that I struggled with for a very long time. And basically what that means is choosing, right, remembering the last drill, right, lining your finger up with the laces or that dot right there, right. For the longest time, I shot with my pointer finger, and it worked. Steph Curry shoots with his pointer finger, but it wasn't what was comfortable for me. And personally, it was throwing off my shot every single time because my pointer finger isn't in the middle of my hand, so I would constantly push it right. So what I did is I experimented between using my pointer finger and my middle finger, and what I found is that shooting with my middle finger felt a lot more comfortable, and I was able to shoot the ball a lot straighter because it was in the middle of my hand, and I was able to put the power to that finger specifically to keep the ball straight. All right, so if you consciously think about that, what finger are you putting the pressure to on the ball to keep the ball going straight, right? And is it a finger that isn't aligned in the middle of the ball? Is that causing you to miss? So think about that while you're shooting, all right, and evaluate yourself. What is your shooting finger? All right, this is me shooting with my pointer finger. I did it for a long time, so I'm not terrible with it, but right, I'm gonna align my pointer finger with that dot. And I'm still pretty good, it's not that bad, okay? But here's me shooting with my middle finger, okay? Even better switch. So as I was able to dial in, right, what my shooting finger is, I was able to more accurately aim the ball and tweak it to where I needed it to go. All right, so if you consciously think about that while you're shooting, find what is most comfortable for you and what works for you, because it will be different for other people, right? I'm not Steph Curry, but you know, find what works for you, right? I use my middle finger. Steph Curry uses his pointer finger. Some athletes use their ring finger, all right? Don't use your thumb or your pinky. You will miss. That's thumbing the ball and that's pinkying the ball. And we already went over that. Do not do that. All right, even if it is your dominant hand. Use one of your middle three fingers. Find what works for you. What's in the middle of the ball, right? If you're using your ring finger, line that up with the dot. Middle finger, line that up with the dot. Pointer finger, line that up with the dot. Figure out how your hand placement works on the ball, what works for you, and be consistent with it, okay? That will help you develop a jump shot and dial in your accuracy on that specific finger. All right, so tip number 9, all right, and that's gonna be to be aware of your feet positioning, okay? A lot of people are not aware of it, and they will shoot however they're standing, and they will miss, okay? A common thing that you have to do, all right, is square your feet up to the rim. All right, that's what I mean by that. Is a lot of people will run up for their shot, right? And they'll be in some goofy position, right? Facing, notice how both my feet are facing that way, right? And now I'm gonna go to shoot the ball. And it's fine, but it's a little off, right? We're not squared up to the rim. You also don't wanna have your feet both pointed inwards, or outwards, or sideways, any of those sorts, all right? When you go to shoot, right, imagine you're the rim, what I'm gonna wanna do is I'm gonna line both my feet up directly at the rim, and that's gonna help me have a straight shot. It's okay if you have like a little bit of twist, if that helps you get more bend, but keep your knees and your toes pointed at the rim when you shoot, all right? or else chances are it will be off, okay? But this is me shooting with both my toes pointed inward. I'm not a bad shot. You're not gonna expect me to miss every time. But, right, I'm still following a lot of those fundamentals that I showed you along the way. So those will make up for the fact that I am not having correct feet positioning. But if you do everything together, you will have a better shot if you consciously think about those things. Where are your feet? Plan them. Shoot. This is going to be the last and final tip. All right, this is tip number 10. All right, so what this one's gonna be about is your shooting power. Okay, are you struggling with your fadeaway? Because if you are, this one will make your fadeaway unstoppable. All right, a common issue that a lot of people have is not thinking about the momentum and their movement when they take their shot, right? So when I go to take this shot, right, I use a certain amount of power, and I know what that amount is when I am stationary. All right, and this is what that looks like, right? I did not have a good hand placement on the ball there, so make sure you're thinking about those things. I didn't there, but I still made the shot, right? That's the amount of power that I need to get to the rim there, right? But if I'm running up to the rim, right, you're not going to use the same amount of power as you did that same shot, but some people will because they don't really think about it like that, right? But you're carrying momentum with you, and that's got to go somewhere, so that goes more into the ball. So you have to compensate for that running motion and shoot with less power, okay? So if I shoot from the same spot with a running motion with the exact same power I just shot, I'm gonna overshoot it. So what you have to do is you have to compensate for that running motion, and you have to shoot it with less power, and you have to take note of the speed that you're running at and how much momentum will transfer to the ball through your arm, okay? Right, you're still thinking about that fluid motion, and you running is now part of that fluid motion, so you need to be cognizant of that when making that mid-range shot, okay? So what that's gonna look like, compensating for that, something like this. All right, give it a little less power, right? But we use that momentum to carry our body up and bring the ball to the rim easier. But we used less power, okay? And it's similar to when you're fading away from the rim, all right? Just as when you're going towards the rim, you need to pull that power back and use less power than when in that same shot. If you are fading away from the rim, right, a lot of people will still use that same power and they'll continue to shoot in front of the rim, and it's really frustrating because you're like, oh, I can't make a fadeaway. They make it look so cool on TV. How do I do that? What you need to do is you need to compensate for that fading away motion, all right? You now need to give yourself more power in that arm when fading away from the rim than you did being stationary, all right? You need to make up for that receding momentum, okay? Or else you'll continue to fall short of the rim. So I'll go ahead and showcase that now. So this one's gonna be with the same power. Right, I fell short because I didn't give it enough power. I used the same power that I would use when I'm stationary, but that isn't enough to bring it to the rim when I'm fading away from it. So what I need to do is I need to compensate for that, okay? you use that momentum and fight it. This is what it looks like when you compensate for that fading away motion with a little bit more power in your shot. There we go. Notice how I squared my feet up to the rim. I jumped with that fluid motion, and I gave it a little bit more power while hitting the fade to get it there. Whew. All right. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I really hope that these tips and tricks can help you improve your basketball game. Hopefully you can get shooting like Steph Curry in no time, and you'll be an elite 3-point and mid-range attacker in no time. All right, so keep all of these things in mind. Remember, each one builds on top of the other, so watch through, okay, and continue to constantly think about every single one of these things if you want to be the best shooter that you can be. All right, this is the best advice I can give you. Thanks so much for watching. ZachHoops signing out. You guys have a great day.